If you are a finance student or an MBA finance aspirant or a financial analyst or someone who is just preparing for finance career, then this video will change the way you feel about Excel. In this video, I'm going to explain you 15 modern and advanced Excel functions that every finance aspirant must know. But this video will not be just a basic formula explanation wherein I just explain you unique filter sort, sequence let, etc. It will be significantly more than that because I will take you through these modern functions and a combination of these modern functions together. For example, I will show you how we can use sequence function inside let function. I will show you how we can use index match inside SUMIFS function. I'll show you how we can use SUMIFS inside some function. I'll also show you how we can use take inside filter, how we can use sort by inside unique, and multiple different various combinations that we as financial analysts use regularly in our career. Now, to get the best out of this video, I would recommend that please download the Excel file, which is available at the link in the description. And I've also divided this video into different chapters so that traversing through the video becomes efficient and easier for you. And one important thing before we proceed, that watching this video multiple times might not help you, but watching this video once and then practicing this Excel file multiple times will significantly help you. For example, you can see one formula in front of your screen where I have let function, and inside that we have sequence function, and inside that we also have some product function. These are the kind of functions that we are going to look in this video. And these are very modern functions. I'll be taking you through multiple different relevant examples where we as finance professionals use it on a daily basis, such as valuation and any financial modeling relevant examples. So let's get into the video now. So let's start with the filter function, and we'll also look at sum plus filter function. Think of a data table in Excel where we use multiple criterias and then we arrive at a range or an array of data. That's what exactly the filter function does. It helps you to filter a certain array based on the desired criteria. Now let's look at how we can use the filter function. So if you see this tab, basically this is a mini P&L statement, and against each and every line item we have a mapping, whether it is revenue, whether it is cost of goods sold or indirect cost, etc. So what we are going to do is we are going to try to filter out these data labels. So we can just use filter function, and we'll just go here. We'll select these line items because we want the line items to be filtered against this. And the criteria that we are going to use is this. And this needs to be filtered against indirect cost, which is C15. I'll show you. So C15 is this indirect cost. So whichever line items is labeled as indirect cost, give me those answers. So this gives us the entire data labels. Now, we can use the same thing to pull the data as well. If I just select, I've put a minus here because I know that the costs are negative. So I'm just saying minus filter, and I again go here. I want these results. I will select these results, and against this, I want the mapping to be indirect cost. I have selected this and I have just pressed C15. And now this gives me a full dynamic array which is being pulled from the data. If I update that data, this table will get updated. Now let's look at the advanced level where we can use sum and filter together. Just look at this data point where we have categories and then we have amounts. So in this, if I just do filter and I'm going to filter this data points against where I want these labels to be equal to as this. So this basically will give me all of the places. Now it's a spill because there are data points downwards. So I have to just delete that and this gets populated downwards. So now it has given me all of the data points which consists of salaries. If you look at salaries is 38,024. It is also 29,204. It is also 232912, and it is also 2776. It has given me all of that. Now it's a dynamic array. If I put any function outside of this, it will just give me the summation of, or it will just give me the one final output. But the moment I put that, I get the total summation of salaries. And I have to just drag this down. Now this gives me the exact same number which we have here. This basically is an alternative of SUMIFS function. Now you can also use a different function outside, probably like average or count, whichever one you want to. So if you look at our previous entity one, here also we can try to find what would be the total indirect cost, summation of indirect cost. If you see, this would be 33,000. That's what is here. We have just used some function outside. We are saying filter, and M column is your data column, and then K column is your mapping column, and then we are saying that it should be is equal to indirect cost. That's what gives us 33,000, same as what we saw there. Now let's move to second function, which is unique function, and how to use unique plus filter function together. And this function is very much important from a data validation point of view as well. Basically, unique function gives us the unique list of line items or unique list of labels that are available in a data. You could also do that using data and then remove duplicates. But Excel has come up with a modern function which is known as unique to replace that entire operation. So all you need to do is you need to just use unique function outside and just link up your data. So we have linked it up from K33 to K45. This gives us whatever the unique labels are. And there is again a dynamic array. This is very easy part. Okay. The difficult part would be when you would have to use unique and filter together. Let me tell you how it is used. For example, if someone asks you, what is the unique list in this within salaries? So we know, we can see it that salaries group A and salaries group B and salaries group C is here. We know that these three are unique. If the data is huge, how to get this? So what we can do is, I've just typed it here, salaries, okay? And then what I'm using is this function. I'm using first filter, and then outside of that, I'm using unique. So assume if you had to get the unique values against salaries here. So all you have to do is filter and then go to the array. We want this array to be filtered against this array, which should be equal to salaries. Okay. Now, the moment I do this, this will give me all the salaries part. Okay. But I need a unique of this, because if you see, there is salaries group A repeating twice, right? So all we have to do is just put unique function outside, and that's it. That's all what we have done here. If you see here, same function is here. Same goes for utilities, same approach we have used. Same goes for depreciation. That's what we have used here. Now, one of the biggest application of this unique plus filter function is in data validation. So for instance, if you have to create a drop down which should change accordingly, so then you can just use unique function or unique plus filter together and then link your data validation. If you see here, this is a data validation. I go here and yeah, if you see, I have linked it with B35, which is this. And I've put a hash, meaning until unless wherever that range extends. So for now, if you see, you will have salaries, rent, utilities, depreciation. Now assume if I just include, let's say, staff and just some random number, okay, let's say commission. Now I have to just, so I didn't extend the range. Let me just extend the range, then it will work automatically. So if this, in this case, now automatically the staff word has been included in your data list. So that's one of the biggest advantage of this. So now let's look at Vstack and Hstack function. So this is our Vstack and Hstack function. Think of it this way, that Vstack represents vertical stack function and Hstack represents horizontal stack function. Basically, Vstack will help you to arrange data in a vertical format, and HStack will help you arrange data horizontally, side by side. Let's look at the example, then it will become much more clearer. So if you see in Entity 1 tab, we have total revenues at L13. We have again total revenues for Entity 2 at L13. Then again Entity 3 at L13. Then again Entity 4 at L13. And then again adjustments at L13. So basically this means that all our P&Ls are standardized. In this case, if you had to create the segmental analysis, you would have to, link each and every tab one by one. And in cases when there are multiple segments, it becomes very much difficult to individually link, and it's not much dynamic approach. That's where Vstack comes in. When you have to reconcile and when you have to showcase segmental analysis or in dashboards, it becomes very helpful to use Vstack function. We can look at how to use this. Let me just delete this. It will become much more clearer then. So how we can do this is, we'll write Vstack and then we go to entity 1. We want to get the entity names. So we'll just select K11 and we'll hold down the shift key and we'll go to the sheet until which we want the names or the formulas to reflect. We'll select that sheet while holding the shift key and then just press the bracket close and then hit enter. And then we'll get all of the entity names. Again, it's a dynamic array. It can change as your source data changes. Always, as best practice, to keep some of the rows blank so that your formulas don't throw a spill error. Now again, we'll use Vstack here and we go to the revenues. We want to see the revenues split. We'll just go select L13, hold down shift key and select adjustment entity sheet and then bracket close and enter. And then we'll do the same thing here. We'll just select Vstack. We'll go to entity sheet. Now we want this revenue number, which is M13. We'll hold down shift key, select until adjustment entity and enter. Now we get the total numbers. So this is where Vstack becomes very much helpful. We could have also looked at this thing using HStack, but in a different format. Here we will use HStack. Again, the approach is same. So we are getting the same information, but in a different way. I've also given another example in annexure. Feel free to go through it, wherein we have 3 data sets: India, and then product A, product B, USA, product A, product B, and Europe, your product A, product B. Now, all of this information can be looked at this way. Now, this is created using Vstack, and this is again Vstack for product A and product B, and this is created using HStack for product A, and this is for product B using HStack. Now, it depends the way you want to present the information, but both of these functions have very similar usage. It's only the representation that differs. Now we can move on to the 4th function, which is sort and sort by. Now this is where things will get slightly more interesting, because we are going to learn how to use sort and unique function. We'll also understand how to use unique and sort by function. So let's look at table 1. Now let's start with table 1. Before we deep dive, just understand the concept that there are 2 functions that Excel provides you, sort and sort by. The key difference between both of them being that sort function is used when you have to sort a column or a data point which is within an array. Okay? But sort by is used when you have to sort it based on a column that is not within the data range. This is the most important difference between them. Okay? So now, if you see this data table, what we are saying here is, we are saying that you give us this column, sort this K75 to K85, and then as a column reference, sort order, sort index, which is the column reference, we are giving 1, meaning sorted on the basis of first column. Okay, and then the sort order, we are saying 1. 1 is basically ascending. If I put -1, it is descending. But here I have put 1, so it is giving me ascending in terms of the strings. Okay, and then I have used unique function outside because I don't want repetitive values. And the moment I hit enter, it will give me this dynamic label. And then I've just used a simple SUMIFS to get values against this. So this is the most basic function of sort. Okay. Now look at the table 2. This is the table wherein I am saying that you take the whole category and the amount data point. Okay. But you sort it on the basis of column 2, which is amount. And you give me in the descending order, hence -1. So in this case, what it gives me is that it will give me non-unique categories also. As in, it will give me all of the categories. So if you see here, salaries group A and salaries group A appears twice. Row 91 and it also appears in row 100 here and it also appears here. Similarly, utilities group B and utilities group B, it appears twice because these are two duplicate values. You cannot use unique function outside this and then sort this function on the basis of this column. It will not work. There is a workaround for that. That's why sort by function is used. So if you see, now there are two approaches. Assume if you want to do it this way only, okay, then the best way is to use another function again, sort by, wherein you give the full table reference. So I'm saying sort by from B75 until C83 full. And then I'm saying sort it on the basis of C75 to C83 and then -1. Let me do it in front of you. It will become more clear. So I'm saying here sort by and give me the full array. This is my full array. Okay. And then it says by array, as in by which array you want to sort. I want to sort it by this array. Okay. And then it asks you sort order. I will say I need -1 descending. And then I'll just hit enter. The whole array will get sorted. So this is two-way approach. If you want to use unique outside and use sort function, then you have to do it this way. If you want it data amounts to be arranged descending way. Okay. The best way is to forget all of these three tables. Just focus on this unique plus sort by. That's where I have mentioned here. Remember only this because sort has some limitations. That's why sort by bypasses all of those limitations. So let me show you what I'm saying. Here I'll say that sort by which array I want to sort by. I want to sort by this. I want to sort this array. The order will be for this array. Okay. And it will be -1. Now this much I have given. Now I will just use unique function outside and then hit enter. That's all. It gives me all of these unique categories sorted in such a way that the totals will be always in descending order. One of the biggest application of this is when you are creating EBITDA bridges or revenue bridges from one point in time to another point in time, or whenever you are showing uplift or downfall across different categories, you can use this. That's the biggest application of this function. Now we can move to other advanced function. I'm not sure if you have heard of this function, but we can use SUMIFS inside some function. Let me show you how. I will first show you there are traditional approaches which people commonly use, and you should not use those approach. You should use a better approach. So this is a basic SUMIFS. Okay. Here I have plotted certain categories, and if you see, I am just taking data from here. I am saying some M column from K column whenever the criteria is met here. Okay. Now, this is a common SUMIFS function which we are aware of. But assume if you have to calculate all of these four in one single cell, you only have this alternative where you will do this SUMIFS plus this SUMIFS plus this SUMIFS plus this SUMIFS, right? These are traditional approaches. Don't use these. What in fact you can use is this. And this is my favorite function, wherein we say we give a range of criterias, and outside that criteria, we use a sum function. How to use this? Let's look at this. So I just put minus here, and let me move sum function so that it becomes very clear for you. First, let's look at SUMIFS only. Okay, we are saying that we want to SUMIF this range on the basis of this range, and it should be equal to this range, which is from, let me just remove this. Okay, now do you know what the result will be? The result of this will be a dynamic array. It will be a spill function. Okay, that's what we are doing. We are just putting an outside sum function further to sum all of it up. The basic difference is only this. Here you have put a condition as one static condition. Here I am using a dynamic condition. Now another version of this could also be this, wherein you just don't write or don't link it to that cell. If you want, you can use curly brackets open and give the label's name within quotes. This also works. Same thing, same concept, because if you use formula evaluator, you will see it appearing the same way. Here, if you see, it appears in the first step. See, it's the same thing that we are doing there. So this significantly helps you avoid writing multiple SUMIFS function within one formula bar. And it has significant advantages when you are doing multi-entity financial modeling. Now let's move on to next function, which is using sum function in a three-dimensional way. Now, each and every sheet has row and a column, which is the two dimensions. The third dimension is basically the sheets. So now the way to use this function is, we know that entity 1 to adjustment entity is all standardized. And I have just copied this P&L because this is exactly same in each and every entity. So what I can do is, if I have to create this, my check is here, which is basically linked with across. So let me just show you how to create this. So assume if I have to create a consolidated P&L. So how I would create this is, I'll use a sum function and then I'll go to entity. Now revenue is here. I will just select this because I know this number I have to select, and hold down shift key and select adjustment entity, and then just close bracket and hit enter. And then you just have to use the same formulas and just use this F4, F4. That's it. Your consolidated P&L is ready. The check is ready. And it gives you OK. When your sheets are standardized and you want to create a consolidated view, this is the way it can be done. In your equity research models, when you have multiple segments where you have forecasted multiple segments in different sheets, you can again use 3D formulas there. Now let's move on to next function. This is a slightly advanced function, so please practice it a couple of times to get an expertise. Now here we are going to talk about index match inside SUMIFS function. I am sure most of you would know index match, what an index match is. But have you thought about using SUMIFS outside index match? This is what we will show here. Now, assume this data table wherein you have region, product, and multiple months, and then volume of units sold. And if someone tells you that we need March number, you can create this dynamic formula. Here, you can also use Feb, the number will change. If you can use May, everything will change. You can select region, it will change. You can select type of gadget, it will change. The best way to model this function is to think of it from the lowest point of view or the smallest point of view. So what I mean by this is that if someone has selected here May, that means we need this full array, May full array. How we will get that? Using index match. So let's use first index match. We will select the whole region. Okay. And then now we need row. But we don't need row here because we need the array vertical. So row, we'll just leave it blank. Okay. And then In the columns, we need to match May. So we'll just select May, which is D175, and this is available here, and we need an exact match. Now what will happen is, if I hit enter, it will give me the full May month array. So if you see, it has given me full May month array. But our work is not stopped here. Now what we have to do is, within this array, we need to sum up on the basis of the type of product and the region. That's where SUMIFS will help. Now we'll put SUMIFS. Now this is my sum range. Okay. Inside this, I want to give the criteria range. Now this is the first criteria range. When this should be equal to the region, which is here, B175. And the second range would be, second criteria range would be this, wherein I want to give the type of product. It is C175. Now if I just hit enter, it will work. 125. That's what we had before. So this is the way to create index match inside SUMIFS. And this will be very, very helpful when you are dealing with huge data set and you have to show certain KPIs on the dashboard, or you have to use certain numbers in different form of templates. It's very much helpful in that case. But remember one thing, to keep always your formulas dynamic. Otherwise, it may throw an error as well. Now let's move on to the next one, which is using SUMPRODUCT as a multi-criteria sum function. Now this is another variant of SUMIFS or another alternative of SUMIFS. By now you must be, I'm hoping that you must be aware about SUMPRODUCT and mainly when to use it. You must be using it in finding weighted averages or weighted average numbers. Okay. But there is a lot more application to SUMPRODUCT than just finding weighted average numbers or weighted average percentages. One of the application I'm trying to show you here. So these are the region and these are the products. And if someone says that we need North regions, A products, units sold. So what you can do is you can use SUMPRODUCT. How to use this is, we'll first start with SUMPRODUCT, and the first criteria, the array one, becomes that from this range to here. This should be equal to the region here. And the second condition becomes wherein we are selecting the product from here till here, and this should be equal to C200, which is this. And thirdly, we are saying that it should also be equal to the unit sold. Now let me show you how to make this. It will help you understand more clearly. So the way I do it is I create specific brackets whenever I am dealing with multi-criteria, because it helps significantly during auditing. So now I'm going to just freeze this and I'm going to say this should be equal to B200, and then I'm going to use a product sign. Why? Because this means that this condition has to be true, the next condition has to be true, and another has to be true. It's an AND operator. Now here again, I will select this, and this will be equal to C200. And again, I'm going to select last condition, which is this. Now against this, it will give me the total number, which is 2552. This was the same number which we saw before. Now let me tell you one thing further advanced. What if someone asks you to find the numbers or the sum which are greater than 800 here? Now I'm sure you can do this using multiple helper columns or helper cells or using ifs and all. But this formula is very simple and easy to audit as well. So here what we are doing, we are using the same things. We are using the same range, region equal to the desired region, product equal to the desired product, and then within the units only, we are just saying that the units sold should be greater than the F187, which is this 800. And then we are again giving the D column. So this way, it's the same function that I've used here. I'll just use the same function. Now I'm just going to add one more condition here. So here I'll just say that this should be greater than this number. That's what I have done. Additional and enter 1912. Okay. So now if anyone changes this number, let's say 1000, that number will change. If someone says, let's say 5000, it should give you 0. It gives you 0. Let me revert back to 800. So now we can move to next function, which is pivot by function. This function is very advanced function, not in terms of implementation, but in terms of thinking through. Why I say thinking through? You must be aware about pivot tables. This function gives you an alternative to create pivot table kind of layout and pivot table kind of summary, but without creating the pivot tables. So what it actually does is, if you look at this data table, there is main category, and then there is subcategory, and then there is amount. Now, I will show you 4 or 5 different ways how to use this function. So if you see, this is the function which I've created here. If I just delete this, everything goes away. Now, let me show you how to use this. We'll just say pivot by, and then we have to give row fields, which row fields you want. Let me give the column K, okay? And then it says column fields, which column fields, as in which fields will appear in B, C, D, E, F, etc. So let me give that this column. And then it says values. So this is the values, okay? Now there are multiple other functions that what function you want. Do you want some percent of average, median, etc.? You can give whatever you want here, but let me just give some here. You also can give field headers, row total depth, row sort order, column total depth, column sort order, all of those options you can give. Okay, but let me just touch these basics here. So here you will see that depreciation has here sorted out, rent is here, these are salaries, and this is the utilities. And total of all of this is 258531, which is here. So this is one way of using pivot by. Another way you could have used is use just percent of function. Now this gives you percent function. Okay, instead of values, it gives you in terms of percentage. Another way you can use this is you can use here. Now assume if you wanted to sort it on the basis of J column. So you can use pivot by J column, and then in terms of column fields, I'm not giving any column fields, okay, because I want summation in this category. So I'm leaving that blank. In terms of values, I have given L column, and then I've given sum, and then I'm also giving 3 field headers, meaning I'm saying give the field header as 3, which is amount here. Okay. So if you see here, amount comes in here. And I'm also saying that row total depth, I'm not saying anything, but I'm saying sort order as -2, meaning descending, and the second column, which is amount. Okay. So the moment I hit enter, it gives me something like this. Okay. So yeah, I have mentioned here that use 1 to sort by first column or 2 to sort by second column. But remember that it should not be on the basis of the table. It should be on the basis of the data that you have selected. And you can also use percent of here to get the percentage. There is another function which is known as group by, which is a bit similar to pivot by function. And let's look at how this helps us. So here we are using the same data set, and instead of pivot by, I've used group by here. So in group by, it works more or less in a similar way. But if you see here, I've just linked it with column J as the row fields, and then values, I have given it as L column. And then for function, I've given it sum. Then field headers, I've given as 3 because I want this field headers to be there. Total depth, I've given it as 1. And then sort order, again, I've given it as -2, which is descending here. The moment I click this, I get this number. And same thing I've used here as well, but I've just used a different column here to get the analysis. Now, both of these formulas are very similar, but there is one key difference between them, that PIVOTBY can stretch across multi-axes and multiple rows and multiple axes, but GROUPBY can only give you in a one single stacked format. Okay, that's the main difference between both of these functions. Now let's move on to certain more advanced functions such as sequence function. And this function is significantly important in terms of when we are using financial modeling. And I've tried to explain you multiple different examples so that you remember when to use these formulas. Let's start with a very simple example. Assume if you have to use multiple different headers of FY26 estimates, FY27, and so on until FY2030. So you can use this simple function that Fy I have put before the sequence function. And then in sequence, I'm saying that start with one row only. As in, don't give me beyond one row. Okay? But give me 5 columns. So it basically says that, yeah, go across 5 columns in single row. Had I have put this 5 and 1, then it would have given me vertically downwards. Okay? And then I'm saying start with 2026. And then I'm just saying ampersand and E stands for estimates. Okay. Now let's look at example 2. This is where I'm saying that text in the text format I want. Which format? It should be MMM-YY format. Okay. Now to give the value, what I'm doing is I'm starting with eDate function. And then I'm saying start date will be 2026. Okay. First, and then sequence I'm saying give it in 10 columns. Okay. But one single row. And then your start should be 0. And then step is 1. Okay. So it basically steps by 1 each and every column. And then again, I have at the end connected a E for projections. Now, if I change this to 12, if you see here, it's only till like October. Now, if I change this to 12, this will become till December. That's how we can create dynamic labels with the sequence. We can also look at this. This is a little simpler version, but this is basically when you're starting with, let's say, not from January, then in that case, I've used this. So text, and then I'm saying date function. Inside that, I'm saying start with 2025. And in the month, I'm giving sequence 1 plus 8. Basically, I'm saying that start with September. And then comma 1, and then give me this in MMM-YY format. I can just write here also, let's say, dash YY. It will give me in dash format. Now it's giving in dash format. Earlier it was giving me without dash. Okay. And this goes until 12 months. So we can use this function another way as well, wherein I'm saying this. C286, which is 1000, into 1 plus 10%, which is C287, whole raised to the power sequence, start with 1 in one row only, give me 5 columns, start is 1, and then step up is 1. That's all. So this will give me 1000 into 1 plus 10%, then 1100 into 1 plus 10%, and then 1210 into 1 plus 10%, like that. Okay. Another example would be, you would be remembering that when we are doing our DCF, we calculate discount factors, right? We can use at that time also. So this is where I'm saying 1 divided by the discount rate raised to the power 1, 5 columns and 1 and 1. So this gives me the entire list of discount factors. Now let's look at through example how it would work. So this is your free cash flows, 100, 115, 132, etc. This is your WACC. Traditionally, what you would have done is you would have find out 100 into this, this into this, this into this, like that. And your total present value would have been this, right? But with the help of sequence, what you can do is you can just use this function where I have selected C293 till G293, and all of that is divided by 1 plus C294, which is the VAC, and then raised to the power sequence 1 comma columns of these many numbers. Okay, you can use just hard-coded values also, but I've used columns so that it remains dynamic. Okay, and then I'm saying start with 1, give the step of 1. Okay, so this gives me the full array of discounted cash flows. Now just think this way: if I just put sum outside of this, it will give me the full number, right? So this is what I've done here. So this is your final formula, wherein just in one cell you have calculated the full present value of all the free cash flows. So this is just to explain you how you can get the full dynamic array, and then I have just used some function outside of this function. That's all. So this is an advanced formula. Use these functions in a incremental way in your models so that we as finance professionals can become better at creating our deliverables and our financial models. Now let's look at another function, let function. Now I'm sure that many of you might have heard about this function, but this function is very advanced function in terms of the approach that this function uses. So let's look at this quick short P&L, wherein we have revenue, we have cost, gross profit, then OPEX, then other non-OPEX, EBT, and then taxes at 30%, and then you have net income, right? So all of this you have calculated, you have used multiple helper cells to determine the net income, right? You can create the same thing using let function in just one cell. So let's see how we can use this using let function. So using let function, the let function straight away says that if you have multiple levels of calculations, you can name those levels of calculation inside the formula and then create the final result without using helper columns or helper cells. So like we have used helper cells above to create, which is gross profit, earnings before taxes, you shall not create all of those. You can rename it as here. So I've used let function and then name one. I've given the first name as EBT, earnings before taxes, which is revenue plus cost of goods sold plus OPEX plus other non-OPEX. And then I'm saying name 2, okay, as taxes. Taxes is nothing but EBT into the rate. And then I'm saying give me the result of EBT minus taxes. Let me show you how this works. That way you can understand clearly. So I'll just say let function here. So if you see, the description also says assigns calculations results to names useful for storing intermediate calculations and values by defining names inside formulas. Now, so I'll say let function, I'll say name 1, let me say EBT, okay. This name is defined within the temporary memory of Excel. And now I'm saying name value 1. So here it will be just this plus OPEX plus other non-OPEX. Okay. Now this gives me earnings before taxes. Now we have to give the name for 2, which will be taxes. This will be your EBT into 30%. So I am saying this into EBT. Here be very careful when you are renaming it. Your name should not be very much similar. And if you're using that name before, if you have used that name before, like I have used EBT before, it will show you something with X. So use this. And then you just give me EBT minus taxes, because both of these functions are defined, right? And just hit enter. You get the same number. Now let's see how we can use it. Another example in, let's say, free cash flow. You'll have free cash flow here. You have the WACC here. You have the discount factors here. Now you are calculating present value of free cash flows. This is your traditional way, okay? Using let approach. If you see here, what we have done here is FCF. Given the range of C324 to G324. Okay. Then I have said VAC, which I have given it as C325. Now we are saying years. And then we are using the sequence function. Okay. Where we are saying start with 1. Okay. Columns FCFF. Why? Because FCFF is already defined here. And then we are saying sum product of FCF, comma, 1 divided by VAC whole raised to the power years. Now it will just sum product all of those individual values and give me the answer. So if you see, exactly same. So this is an advanced way of using let function. Now let's look at another function, which is take function. This function is very less known, but significantly helpful when it comes to advanced financial modeling. Let's look at this data table, which is revenue category, and then we have amounts here. Now assume the basic take function, what it does is that take function basically strips apart a certain portion from your table or an array and gives you that portion. That portion can be defined, and that portion which is stripped out can be variable as well. So if you see here, here I have said take from this entire array 5. Basically, what I'm saying is give me the top 5 here. So top 5 results will be given by this function. This is the basic use of take function. It gives you the 5 results from the start. If we had to use bottom, we'll just say -5. So it gives you bottom 5 results from here. Okay. I'll revert back. Now let's look at one advanced level wherein we say take and sort by, because this is not helpful, right? This is not helpful. It's just the portion of the table. But if we say that take and then we are saying sort by, what? We are saying sort by this H to I whole table and sort it on the basis of I column in the descending order, and then you give me 5 top. Okay. Now this becomes helpful analysis. So here, if you see, you are getting the top 5 contributors. Again, very helpful function when you have to use certain data points in a dashboard where you are showing top 5 contributors or bottom 5 contributors. Very helpful in that. If I just say -5 here, it will give me the bottom 5 values. And if I say 5, it is giving me the 5. You can also increase this. Let's say if someone wants to see top 7 contributors, you can increase this. So that's the beauty of take plus sort by function. Now we can also look at take plus filter function. Here if you see, what I'm saying is that filter this list from H to I, okay? Within this, filter on the basis of products which are greater than 2000 and then give me 5 results top of those, okay? Actually, anything greater than 2000 is only 4. That's why it's only giving you 5. But if I just put this as, let's say, 600, it will give me 5 values. Okay. Now you can also reduce this to 2. So here also I'm doing the same thing, using take function outside, filtering it within this entire data set, and then linking it with this value, the criteria, which is here, I column being greater than E365. And then G365 is nothing but the take related variable. Now let's look at another function, which is multiple ifs function. It's a very simple function. I'll spend very less time on this. This is just a multiple ifs function, wherein instead of you writing if this, then false, then give me this again, multiple if, it eliminates that and it just gives you to write multiple ifs within one single formula. That's all this function does. So if you see, what I have done here is, as I have multiple company names and their debt to EBITDA ratios here, based on these tables, wherein this is the rating and what would be their actual derived rating. I've just given a start and an end just to have these numbers in numeric. That's why. So here all I'm saying is ifs And if C376, which is this 1.25, is greater than J374, which is this, and less than K374, this, then you give me H374, which is this. And that's all. And similarly, I've used for all the other conditions as well. If again C376 is greater than J375, but less than or equal to K375, give me this. That's all this function is doing. Now we can move on to the next function, which is X-LOOKUP function. Now here, I will just briefly show you the basic X-LOOKUP, and then I will show you the multi-criteria X-LOOKUP. Okay. So this is a single criteria condition to use X-LOOKUP. Before we come to the modern X-LOOKUP approach, let's look at traditional approaches. So if someone has to find out what is the laptops related amount in this data table, you could use this simple index wherein you are saying, index this whole array, and you are saying match B393, which is this, against this column, exact match, which is 0, and then columns from here to here. So meaning that give me data from this column. This gives you 4559. If you make this as software apps, it gives you 3321. Okay. If you do this mobiles, it gives you 5543, which is right. I'll revert back. Now, you could also do this using SUMIFS, correct? I've done the same thing. SUMIFS, this row, and based on this is equal to this, laptops. The modern approach of XLOOKUP is wherein you are saying XLOOKUP, this value, lookup array will be this, because you are looking up in this. Result array would be, which is return array here, this. And just hit enter, that's all. So this is the single criteria and very simple function. But what if criteria are multiple? Like for instance, in this data table, if you see, you have laptops, you have brands against each laptops, you have amounts against each laptops. Now, I want to showcase you two things, dynamic data list, and I also want to show you how to use this XLOOKUP function for multi-criteria. Let's look at first one. Multi-criteria would be that where I'm saying XLOOKUP, B402, which is this, percent, B404, because these are two AND conditions and I want both the conditions to be satisfied. Then I am saying lookup in H column. Make sure that you are using, if B402, then it should be the first column here. So follow the same sequence. Okay. So I have selected table fans first. So then I have to select the same column as table fans here. So first array, and then and the second array where your brands are there. If you see here, Olsen Mark is here. And then I'm saying result array, which is this. This gives me 411. You could also use this using traditional index match. How? You are saying the full index, full array. Let me show you, it will become much better here. So index, I'm saying full array, okay? And then I'm saying match, multiple match. Match this, ampersand, match this, against which? This column, ampersand, against this column as well, comma, exact match, which is 0. Now you want the amounts, right? Use columns function and just link it to this. That's all. This is your traditional index match, okay, using multi-criteria. Now the functions part is finished, but let me show you one thing. This will significantly help you if you don't know multi-dimensional data validation techniques. This is again done using filter functions. So if you see here, I have done unique function here. Okay, this gives me unique. So here, people can select laptops or mobiles or table fans. If you select laptops, this one will give you brands like Lenovo, Dell, Asus, and others, right? But the moment you select mobiles, it will give you brands like Apple, Samsung, Google, others. And the moment you select table fans, it will give you brands like Hitachi, Olsen Mark, others. How I have achieved this is this. First, get one level of data list, which is unique function of this. Second level, use filter function from this. So all I've done is filter I column, which is this brand column, but your H column should be equal to B402, which is nothing but this. Okay, because this changes, then this should also change. This is your first level of data list, and this one is your second level of data list. Now all you need to do is tag these, right? So for tagging, what I've done is here, if you see data, if you look at this will be data and data validation. This is L402, which is this L402. And the next one, which is this data validation, this will be M402 here. So because the moment this L will change, this will automatically change. So this is another way you can use to create dynamic data validation. So that's all for now. And I would recommend keep practicing. Watching this video multiple times will not help you much, but watching it once and then practicing it multiple times in the Excel will help you significantly. So keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.